Thank you. Just to introduce everyone then, who you can see up here, we've got Stuart Michell from WHSmith in North America, we've got Jess Cooke from Stonegate Group, John Mathieson from Deliveroo, and we've got Susie Moan from Currys. We're going to talk about whether retail companies should behave more like media owners or should embrace the fact that they are retail companies. I feel like it's going to be a game of two halves and sort of pros and cons of each. Start on a slightly dry subject though, John, definitions. Is Deliveroo a retail company?
That is a good question. I would say that we're not. I would define us as more of an aggregator. So our role is to bring together consumers with our partners. And obviously they are in the business. A lot of those guys are in the business of retail. So I wouldn't say that Deliveroo is a retailer. I think we're an aggregator. Therefore, I think we look at this and we look at the retail media challenges and opportunities through a slightly different lens.
Yeah. The keen eye in the audience will notice that there's no grocers on stage, which is intentional, refreshing, whatever it might be. But you are most certainly a retailer, Jess?
Yes, so Stonegate might be a name you haven't heard of, but I'm pretty confident you've drunk in one of our bars. So we are the UK's largest on-trade hospitality retailer, and I'm going to use that intentionally. So we have about 700 bars you might know. My personal favourite be at One, Slug and Lettuce, Pop World, Walkabout, Sports Bar and Grill just down the road. Then we have about 600 Craft Union, which is an operator-led model, and then about 3,000 local community pubs. And we're going through a cultural transition. I've only been there about 7-8 months. I've previously always worked at FMCG, 7 years at Tesco Media. So this is new to me as well, that it's always been very traditionally an operator-led model. How do you get a keg from point A to point B? But also the general manager is kind of the heart. Most people think they work for the Dog and Duck, not for Stonegate Group. So we're going through that transition as what is it like to be a retailer, and what we're doing with Mixers, our retail media network, is kind of at the heart of that, which is digital data-led marketing to transform that guest experience. And it's not just about traditional menu or kind of traditional pub operating models, but it's how do we really not only transform the guest experience, but look at how we can take it a step further, connecting all the different guest experiences across our different fascias into one kind of connected data set.
Yeah. If you don't mind me doing it, Susie, we'll do some dunnhumby alumni from one to another. Tell us a bit about where Currys are on your journey.
So we launched Currys Connected Media just nearly a year ago, powered by data, and that's why me as the Chief Data Officer, it sits with me. I have a small but perfectly formed team within my function, and we use the data to fuel insight through to then on-site, off-site, and we're looking to do more in store now, so it was interesting to hear more about stores earlier, actually. Yeah,
and for the uninitiated, me, because I didn't realise WHSmith was actually a brand in North America, but it kind of isn't. It isn't. You were telling us just now.
Yes, WHSmith have been in North America for just over 3 years, and the very different thing about the North American business is if you travel through the airports in North America, you won't see a WHSmith branded store as you would in Heathrow or London Gatwick. They're very bespoke and localized to the area. So if you're in San Francisco, it's San Francisco District Market. If you're in LaGuardia, it's Bowery Bay, which is named after the bay surrounding New York. So as a travel retailer launching a retail media network, we have to think very hard how we capture the hearts and minds of those traveling customers without that underlying brand underpinning it all.
And are you embracing the fact that you are a retailer, or are you sort of desperately trying to clamber over this new competitive set, which is, of course, media owners, publishers, the big platforms?
No, we are a retailer. I mean, we were founded in 1792, so our kind of core foundations as a business is pure retail. We are now a travel retailer. We've morphed from what was a high street business into a travel retailer. And I think that plays very differently when you look at grocery. There's less predictability, so we have to be really intentional about how we target our customers when it comes to retail media.
Yeah. What are some of these, if we start with the pros, Susie, in terms of retailers embracing being retailers and the fact that they aren't media owners, what is it from your point of view that really works? What is it that Currys as a retailer has got that perhaps other media owners, publishers don't? What's your kind of superpower there?
Well, data, obviously, really important. And again, hearing about it this morning, that's key. Customers, obviously, customer experience is a really massive focus at Currys. Product remains a big focus. You know, we help everyone enjoy amazing technology, and that is our mission. And then our colleagues are a really important part of our business. You know, we're the UK's largest tech retailer, and we are the truly omni-channel, so our colleagues play a big part in it. on the one hand, we truly see ourselves as a retailer, and Currys Connected Media is part of that.
Yeah.
But equally, that's why we've branded it something different, because it is different.
Violent agreement, John. Sounds like nodding.
No, I think I agree with a lot of that. I think I would say data remains our superpower as well. We obviously have a huge amount of data. We do something like 300 million transactions globally a year. So you can imagine as a result of that, we know an awful lot about our customers in a whole variety of different situations. So whether that's when they're buying restaurant food, whether that's when they're buying groceries, whether more recently that's when they start buying other products and services that are now available on the platform.
Yeah.
So we know a huge amount, and we also know a huge amount, I suppose, about the geographical dimension that perhaps isn't available through other sources, whether that be retailer or media owner.
Yeah. And the customer, Jess, is always going to be, Dunham trained, if you like. The customer is always going to be absolutely central to what you do. So there's never going to be an instance where an ad format could get in the way of someone enjoying an experience at one of your...
Yeah. One of the intentional bits of language we try to use, which has been really difficult for me to untrain myself, is we call our customers guests.
Guests.
Because they are our guests, and we talk about the guest promise and the guest experience. I think you're right, our platform, we have our app, so our data play, we have our screens in sight, which is, it's kind of almost comparable to an out of home, but it's in venue where we have that long dwell time with really positive experience. I think you're absolutely right. It's something that I, going into the role, probably didn't really realise would probably be such a high part of my job, is thinking about how do we use the space where we're advertising and kind of generating these incremental ad spend, but make sure it complements the guest experience, not only through giving inspiration on new drinks or products or serves, but also creating a non-endemic play as well. And there's lots of interesting choices we have to make, because there's some really natural fits there, which could be betting in some of our sports bars, it could be dating, it could be entertainment, the new Netflix program, but also it's an age-gated venue, so
Yes.
It opens up a lot of non-endemic plays. And we've joked about this, but OnlyFans, Love Honey, those kinds of things, vaping, those are the brands that
They have
actually are
money.
interesting. And then you have to make a decision that there's money there, but is it the right thing? If I'm a guest, if I'm thinking about my own personal experience, I don't want to be spammed by ads. So finding that happy balance in the way that it complements and amplifies the guest experience, whilst we're thinking about how we optimize the revenue is a tricky balance that we're trying to find.
Yeah, and customers probably rather than guests. You could have guests at Currys, could be quite nice if you start
Very much customers.
Same for you as well. That customer's just so important. You don't want them going shopping somewhere else.
Completely, yeah. I was just thinking about your non-endemic point, that's increasingly what we're looking at as well.
Yeah.
We sell a whole range of different categories in our stores, from washing machines to computers, etc. And the non-endemic opportunity is increasing, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
But you've got to get it right for the customers of the relevance point, and therefore the data powers the relevance.
Yeah, you're going to come in, John?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for us, we see the non-endemic play being fundamental to making our advertising proposition a success. And there are some really obvious adjacent territories or categories that we think work really well from a non-endemic space or perspective. So, for example, we do a lot of work with home entertainment brands, so the likes of streaming services or
That's a
content
wonderful
producers.
compliment. Yeah.
Absolutely, and a very obvious one. So we think that there is a way in which we can bring in non-endemic partners in a way that actually adds value to our customers as well. So we will always prioritize our relationship with our customers over advertising dollars. But we think there are some really kind of cute opportunities that we can scale that would enable us to, or does enable us to play in that non-endemic space. So
I was going to come in and play devil's advocate, I thought, at the start of this, and say, well, maybe endemic is this sort of albatross around the neck in a way, that you'll find it hard to get out of this, like, you do this thing, WHSmith sells these things, therefore you can't go and do other things. But, well, from the three that we've heard, probably proved me wrong. Is it the same with you, Stuart?
I think we're more limited, but I think we have more opportunity to do that. And we are, I talk about airports, and we have a captive audience, and we have that audience is also in a different mindset. And I heard the Tide example earlier around, we know that every 3 weeks someone is going to go and buy Tide Pods. We don't have that level of predictability, but we can use different channels leading up to that travel to hit people and say, hey, on your way in the Uber, when you book your experience, that pick up these great deals. So I think it is relevant, perhaps not as much, because we know that that customer will be in that environment, and we're more focused on in-store retail media to activate whilst in the airport.
Yeah. Can I ask about, which I'm sure has been talked about this morning, we'll get talked about this afternoon, but so much of what we hear wrongly is that retail media, commerce media gets positioned at that bottom of the funnel, executional, very performance driven. The big bucks are effectively at top of funnel, the coveted TV money that everyone's after. Is that difficult or kind of easy to go after as a retailer versus behaving more like a media owner?
I think you've got to get out of your own way. And my background is in buying, and I've heard a lot this morning around those pesky buyers being really tactical, and I have to confess that I love a good tactical action, and I can see when I see an immediate spike in sales.
That'll be a quote in the highlight reel.
But what you realise, and on my retail media journey, is you've got to get out of your own way, and that's the part the retail media network can play in being more objective, because the buyers are always going to do that. So I think you need to create those walls almost to allow that space, but the buyers will do the JVPs and be targeted at that, but the retail media network has to have that kind of more overview and play that role within the retail environment.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think we can't shy away from the fact that, if I take Stonegate, for example, we buy a hell of a lot of beer, wines, and spirits. So as a retailer, we have that power to get a foot in the door and have that conversation with some of those endemic brands. From a non-endemic, we have the scale of the screen network that we have. But I think if we only approach it, and we've seen that we're only a year into our experience at Mixer, is that by kind of approaching it with that retailer first mindset, it forces it into a commercial conversation, it forces it into that lower funnel conversation, because all of a sudden it's being managed by the commercial teams who don't speak marketing, it's being managed by budgets, you're robbing Peter to pay for Paul, and it's not actually driving that incrementality that we're looking for. And I say this relatively flippantly, but I think it's been mentioned a few times, but you have that data, and I think then the conversation becomes about the wrong metrics, and there's this narrative of just because we can measure it doesn't mean we should. And it means that there's always this conversation about ROAS and return on ad spend, which obviously is important, but it's not the only thing. So if you use the power of being a retailer and your buying power, you have the ability to get a foot in the door and then speak to the people that should be funding, that should be understanding it, and they understand where it fits in their customer life cycle. And the way that customers and guests find brands is totally different today than it was even 4 years ago with the pandemic. So understanding the different partners and where we all fit is really important, and media and marketing teams understand that, whereas the commercial teams don't. So having that balance of using your power as a retailer, but media owner expertise is that happy medium that we're trying to strike.
You spent a long time in agencies, John, beforehand. What's the key of, as well as talking to the activation teams, is getting further up and talking to planners and strategists? How do you start to unlock that?
Yeah, I mean, I think conceptually it's really quite straightforward. You need to be able to break into that media agency market. It requires a different approach to talking to brands directly. So you need to understand that ecosystem. That's really, really important. It takes time. It requires significant deployment of resources, whether that's kind of people OpEx. And so it doesn't happen overnight, and we've certainly found that we've had quite a clear direction of travel in this space for a while, but it takes a while to operationalize. I think the other thing that we've got to bear in mind as well is that sometimes our thinking and our desires are actually ahead of where the agencies and the buyers are. I think they are also grappling with how to deal with us and businesses like the ones you see on stage today. I think it's not straightforward. We don't fit neatly into their historic operating model. And actually they've got to do quite a lot of work, I think, to catch up, because they're having the same conversations that we're having. They see how big retail media network is coming or becoming. They want a slice of that, but at the moment they don't quite know how to get the most out of us or to even access us. So I think we've got to work individually and collectively to kind of break down some of those barriers. Yes,
we talk in our own retail media group at the IB, structure often trips us up in different ways. Not only are different agencies structured in different ways, but there'll be one team buying the proximity out of home, there'll be another buying in-store radio, there'll be sort of some other digital specialists doing some app-based stuff. So perhaps we don't help ourselves when it comes to structure. Susie, on planners, strategists, people with that kind of skill set, I mean, the sort of data that you've got is almost sort of a treasure trove. If you're a planner and you want to find out more insight or find out new things about your audience, the sorts of data that all of you have got is kind of incredible. I wonder what the key to kind of unlocking some of that is. Is it about giving over data to planners and strategists? Is it about teams that you might build that help kind of walk them through it? I wonder what the unlock is there.
Yeah, I definitely think it's about democratizing that data with the different audiences that need to use it. So whether that actually is within our trading team, so that they are using it more often, so that they can understand what we are trying to do as Currys Connected Media, whether it's with the brands, through our insight platform that we have, and engaging with brands directly on that, or indeed through our partners that we work with, and through agency networks. So it's about enabling the right level of access. Obviously, as the Chief Data Officer, I would also say it's about protecting the data. So it's not it's not just giving out raw customer data.
The IAB endorsed that message.
Indeed, but making sure it's available to help that insight into how customers are behaving and how the activity is performing. But doing that in an accessible way for the right team that needs to be able to use it.
Same area but different type of question. This time around, sort of trade and shopper, and then sort of thinking maybe on the other side there's digital, brand and media. Does that get in the way sometimes, or is that a plus? The fact that you've got these deep relationships with a whole bunch of brands that you already stock and you kind of sell. You just kind of want to open up the conversation and talk to different teams within there. Does that hold you back, or is that a real plus?
I think it is an ongoing challenge. As I said, we launched less than a year ago, and we have our trading relationships. We're building up our own direct relationships as well, but the partners that we work with, like Epsilon and Criteo, they have their relationships too. So it's an ever-moving feast, and we need to make sure that we're delivering for our business and for our customers and for the brands that are working with us.
Yeah, if you could look across to kind of media owners and platforms and publishers, when you look at them, is there anything you sort of look longingly at and think, I wish we were a bit more like that, or we could do that kind of thing? Or
I think when I look out across the market, I really want us to push the boundaries, and I want retail media to be fun and exciting, and I think we have a really good platform to achieve that in travel retail. So I think looking out and seeing all that kind of omni-channel activation, I get quite jealous because it's harder for me to activate it. But I think when we talk with the brands, actually, we do have the opportunity to do that, and I really want to get them excited around doing one-off concepts that can be localized to a certain event and measuring it. So for me, it's about test and learn, trying different things as we try and establish a retail media network in a travel location. We're a bit behind on that kind of measurement, and we want to fast forward it. But we do that by being brave and testing it as we go.
Innovation and speed, I wonder, Jess, as well, because I think if you have the consumer and customer, your guests front and centre, moving very fast with product and taking some risks, which perhaps if you're a business and makes all your money from advertising, you make different choices. Do the two kind of go hand in hand? Is there any frustration that you want to move faster, you want to innovate?
I think I said for my first 3 months at Stonegate, I was blown away by how quickly they were able to go after this. We have over 3,500 screens. We've done that in less than a year, which I don't think any media owner has been able to build that quickly. So I think we've taken a lot of the ad space by surprise and how quickly we've scaled. I'd agree. I think the thing I probably miss coming from a Tesco is the built-up data that they have. 21, 22 million active users. So we are in that infancy. So I think we have something really cool, something that has this real point of difference in terms of having really engaged quality audiences, being able to see content, and that makes something really interesting to advertisers to buy in a way that I think, thinking about those kind of dynamics, it's sometimes looked at, well, I can compare it to something on the roadside when you're seeing it for 2 seconds versus an hour and a half in venue. But that quality of data is the next thing we really want to build, because again, the on-trade is very old-fashioned. No one's ever done this. So the early stage stuff we're getting out is blowing lots of people's minds, not only in terms of how people are behaving across the on-trades, but also some of the theories we're trying to prove in terms of not only what they do in the on-trade, but what they then go on to do in the off-trade. I think that's the piece that I miss, is that scale, but I think we're growing it really, really quickly.
I might just ask a question about real estate, actually. Cover your ears, John. Maybe this one isn't for Deliveroo. But, that is a real differentiator between a big platform, and you talk about something like dwell time. We're talking about sort of seconds and above folds and things like that in that world. We're talking about half an hour there. I'd imagine, the amount of time people spend in a store. Airport is, and you've got holiday money as well in an airport, which is tremendous. So you can spend all sorts of things. Is that, if we think about these sort of superpowers, is the store the physical real estate as well? Just it's a canvas. It's this place that perhaps if you look at some digital-only media owners, they don't have.
Yeah, I think so. I think I might coin that phrase, holiday money is tremendous. That could be the new WHSmith tagline. But
multiple currencies, just spending it like water. It's incredible.
But I think it has to be a real kind of jewel in our crown, given the environment that we're in as well, is not being embarrassed to be that in-store retail media is a real opportunity to be as close as we can to the point of purchase in a environment where there is higher spend, where there is higher dwell, and conversion we talked a lot about today, that people are more open to testing things as well. So I think the other parts are how we build that I've talked about a bit more, but we've got a lot of opportunity by developing that in-store piece.
Yeah. The final question then, we just have to sort of answer the exam question, I'm afraid, children. So one by one, we'll start with you, Susie. Should retail media networks act more like media companies and less like retailers? It is a binary yes or no, I'm afraid.
See, having worked in a number of different businesses, so I started my career at dunnhumby, so I've seen that, and then I used to run Nectar 360 when it was a joint venture, and then now sort of team within a retailer. I think it's important to think like a retailer in terms of the focus on the product, the focus on the customer, and the focus on the data. But the culture is a piece where you do need to be distinct as a retail media network.
Excellent answer. John?
I've always been a bit of a rule breaker, so I'm not going to answer the question. I think there are really relevant bits of both sides, but whether it be retailer or media owner. I want to be really hungry and greedy, and I'm just going to cherry pick the best bits of both. So,
very good.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question.
Love it.
I'd agree with that. It's a bit of fence sitting, but you can flex based on the opportunity in front of you. I think the place where there's headroom for growth is acting like a media owner first, but using your power as a retailer.
Very good.
I'm going to answer
Jerry's final thought.
I'm going to say no, because I think everything that has made it great is based on being close to that point of purchase and a measurement. But I think there is, from my perspective, a real onus on the retailer to create space and realize that the skill set to activate retail media properly needs something different, and you can't just follow the same kind of process that we have been doing and expect different results. So no, but the retailer has to create a space to enable it to be activated properly.
Very good indeed. They're a wonderful panel. Put your hand together. Stuart, Jess, John and Susie. Thank you very much.